between me and him.
We're live, Facebook Live.
Greetings, Facebook Live. How y'all doing, family? All right, we're getting ready to start. We got some special guests in the studio today.
That's right.
And we're back.
Sure enough. All right. Good evening. All right. Good evening and welcome to True Love Movement Tuesdays. It's your host, Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fire.
And we would like to welcome everyone here this nice, warm, and beautiful Tuesday here in New Orleans. Gorgeous, Mama Fire. July 16th, 2019. Deep into cancer season, folks. We'd like to welcome you. There's so many things happening here in the city of New Orleans and elsewhere. We're honored that you've chosen to ride with us. We're back live in the studio. I'm Mama Fire.
We are back.
Little self-care summer vacation. And
yeah, it was beautiful.
Born day celebration, birth anniversary for you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to Mama Fire. She is 40 fly, family.
Yes, feeling great.
That's right. If you like the True Love Movement on Facebook, you can check us out right here in the studio and see just how fly she is, family. So honored to be with you another year, Mama Fire, to see that birth anniversary go around. There we go. Give it up. We got the applause, family.
Thank you to my cousin Jazz. We love you, our engineer, always doing great.
Behind the boards on the other side of the glass.
Yes.
Right on. And so we have a jam-packed show for you, family. It's good to come back on something like this too. We got a studio full. We got some special guests here and more on the way. Mama Fire, what's happening with you?
Had a busy day. Good day, doing good work.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm glad to have this show today because we have a week of events happening that are very purposeful and everything. So we're going to talk about that today.
Definitely.
That's the theme for today. Healing colorism.
Healing colorism, family. Yeah. We're healing colorism here in the studio in New Orleans, and of course you can catch us on the World Wide Web at www.WBOK1230am.com, as well as the WBOK 1230am app available on Google Play and in the App Store. And of course at 1230 on your AM dial. And we know this is the time that many folks are riding home from work, Mama Fire, picking up children and transferring folks, and so we would encourage you to invite those you respect to join the show, especially something like colorism and healing colorism, because there isn't a person. I was talking last night to the brothers at the shout out to Muhammad Mosque 46 for the Saving Our Sons manhood training sessions last night, and we were talking about the event, and the brother captain said, he said, is there any of us who've not been impacted by colorism, regardless of where we are on the spectrum?
Yeah.
So this is a universal topic for the Black experience. So
yes, it is.
So we're excited, and we're gonna dig right into the jam-packed show, Mama Fire.
Let's get in. So let's talk about our special guests.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So we have in our studio today Shera. Shera is here, and she is the mind behind the healing colorism events that are happening. One on Wednesday for the youth and one on Saturday. And so if you've been on social media, Brother Shaq and I have been sharing it.
That's right.
And we'll put it in the news feed. But if you're interested, go to social media and True Love Movement on social media, and we're talking about the events that are happening. And Shera is the deep thinker behind all of these events, and wanted to offer this for herself and for our community. And so, welcome, sister. How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I want to start by saying thank you so much to True Love Movement. You guys have been such an inspiration and such an encouragement. I was just telling you, Mama Fire, earlier today that if it hadn't been for your support and your encouragement, I don't think I would have actually been able to do what I'm doing right now. So thank you.
Oh, yes. It's my pleasure to see young people be really open and ready to help and heal things as big as something like colorism. And so when you first mentioned it to me a long time ago, I was excited. I'm always excited when young people want to like use their voices to help heal something for our people specifically. So, and of course you would have done it. I just gave a little bit of extra love and support.
It meant a whole lot. I don't think you understand how much it meant. It meant a lot.
Thank you, sister. So tell us, why healing colorism?
Because I think that it's responsible for so much pain and so much hurt and sickness within our community that ridding ourselves of that, we would be so much more healthy and just so much more vibrant and thriving if we could rid ourselves of those negative ideas and negative internalizations around blackness.
Yeah, that's right. I love it. And we'll get more into, maybe some history and your own dealings with colorism. But I also want to introduce our brother who is also here, Brian Foy. Thank you for being here, brother.
Truth ambassador.
Yes, truth ambassadors in the house. We talk about truth ambassadors a lot, Brian. What does that mean to you?
Well, first and foremost, it's a testament to, the inspiration that, of the movement that you guys are now forwarding to the rest of, our African brothers and sisters, our African peoples, however you want to define us. And also for me, it's obviously, walking in your truth is a lifelong journey, but intentionally walking towards that and being aware of it is just a whole nother spectrum of things. So when I hear truth ambassador, I basically hear ambassador to the truth.
Yes.
And so that's what it like really means, for me. And I find that in walking my truth, like the universe just it propels you.
Yes, it does.
You just find yourself to like really be aligned, and everyone else, you can like you just see things differently.
Yeah.
And like your paradigm completely changes.
That's right.
It's a lot of work.
Yes, it is. Hard work. We talk
It's a
about
lot
that
of
all the
work.
time. And so Shera was looking for some facilitators for the events that are happening. One tomorrow on Wednesday for the youth from 11 to 1 over at Crescent City Boxing Gym. Shout out to Al over at Crescent City Boxing Gym.
Yeah, that's at 3101 Irado.
That's right, from 11. Well, it starts a little earlier and may end a little later, but definitely for the young people between ages 7 and 17. And she was calling out for some facilitators, and we knew exactly who we wanted to connect Shera with, and it was you, Brian. So tell us, what about healing colorism? How is that for you?
Oh man, especially like living in New Orleans, I feel like compared to the rest of the nation, New Orleans has a special place when it comes to colorism, and particularly because of placage, how you would pronounce it, Creole culture here. We have a lot of passe blanc attitudes or just history here in New Orleans, and being one from the 7th Ward, my family. My last name, which is Foy, is French, and I have a Creole, or people that would identify as Creole, in my family, and just hearing that, like when I was like 7, I thought some of my like family members were white. It was really weird, but so just like kind of talking about that and how it connects to racism as the behemoth that it is, how layered it can become when you have your own little subset of racism. And as y'all would say, how we're like politically defined as black, to have that subset within us is something that's very traumatic. And shows how people who are oppressed will take on the worst of the dominant culture, and in cases like this one.
That's right.
So it's very important for us to be able to move forward with our liberation, to be able to come together as a unit, and healing something like colorism definitely is a step towards that.
Yeah, that's good, and that's why it's important for us to be passionate about this thing as we're facilitating events like this. So Shera, can you tell us about the events, just in general, logistically speaking, how things are going on Wednesday and Saturday?
Okay, so on this Wednesday, which is tomorrow, we're going to start with some encouraging, uplifting activities for our youth, because we know that this can be a sensitive topic. We know that we need to start with uplifting ourselves and encouraging ourselves, and we definitely make sure that before we leave that we're also doing a lot of that uplifting work as well. We don't want anyone to leave not feeling like they are loved and like they are important and special and beautiful and intelligent and capable and all those wonderful things that they are and that we all are. But we're definitely going to dive into the objective is for us to understand what colorism is, and for us to understand how to identify that when we see it and how we can stop participating in that. And so that's on Wednesday. And then on Saturday, our objectives will be for us to share our experiences with one another and hear each other's experiences, because a part of our healing process is that connection, that understanding of what others have gone through and what I've gone through, and sharing that is cathartic. It allows you to release some of that stuff. And then we're going to discuss more further where colorism has come from, how we have internalized it, what methods were used in order to indoctrinate us with the negative view of blackness, and then we're also going to discuss how we have continued to perpetuate that thing and pass it on to our family members and pass it on to our community. And then after that, we talk about how we can stop doing that. What steps can we take to stop passing that on, and what can we do to start the healing process or continue the healing process?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And so what are the times and the locations, just in general? We're going to have you say that again for us, but yeah. We want to say it probably a couple of times throughout today's show.
On Wednesday, we start at 11 and we end at 2, and it's at 3101 Erado Street, and that is Us Helping Us, and also known as Crescent City Boxing Gym. And then on Saturday, from 1 to around 3, and that is at 3101 Erado, which is also Crescent City Boxing Gym and Us Helping Us.
Yeah, shout out to Us Helping Us.
Absolutely. They've been doing a lot of great work, just in general, but this summer they've had a lot of campers from youth from their community right around there, and they've been doing some amazing stuff.
Beautiful, yeah. It is right near True Love Movement Healing Space as well, right down the street. It's actually very, very close to where we practice, and that's Central City. Mm-hmm. And it's the neediest, they say, quote unquote neediest, and we know why there's a need and what perpetuated that need, but it's supposed to be the neediest neighborhood in New Orleans. Wow. So I'm glad that Us Helping Us is willing to do this work, willing to collaborate with people like you, Shera, and organizations like True Love Movement, and in order to do this hard work, because this is tough. I mean, I invited, and I'd like to say we are having some people also join us later, because 4 o'clock sometimes it's a tough time. But I invited a lot of people to come and talk about their experiences with colorism, and some people wanted to kind of say, man, we still talking about colorism, mm-hmm. or man, colorism really that's that topic I really don't want to talk about, or I invited several people that just couldn't do it, and so for whatever reason, and the thing about it is, colorism is something that we do. It's a racism. It's a facet of racism that we perpetuate, as a people. Mm-hmm. And I know that it comes from the larger issue and challenge and problem of racism, but it's something that we can heal. That we don't have to look outside and say, you're supposed to love us and we can do that ourselves, And so I think it's a timeless topic, and let's hope that this movement that you're starting, this healing colorism movement, is not just going to end with these events, but perpetuate a conversation and perpetuate understanding for each other. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it. What do you say about that, Brian?
Oh, definitely. We find that, awareness is like the first part of the process. Is that right, Brother Shaq? And coming from that, from awareness to, our information gathering stage, and really understanding what it's like to stay there before you get to implementation. So, the more aware we can become of the truth of what's actually happening, and how we're perpetuating that, the more able we're to reflect on self and see how we can move in a different direction to begin our healing. You know, a lot of people, you know, come from awareness to action. We really need to like sit, reflect, get as much information as we can, and then actually see what's the wisdom, because implementation is the wisdom. You know, so once we have the knowledge, implement with the wisdom, and then actually make holistic change.
Oh, definitely.
So
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think once you are aware, you know, outside of you, I think there needs to be a step in being aware inside. Like, how does it impact you specifically? You know, we think about our people and we want to say something like, you know, our people, you know, we still dealing with colorism on many levels. How are you dealing with colorism? How does it impact you? How does it impact you when it comes towards you? And then how do you perpetuate colorism?
Right.
Come on, brother Shay, come on, jump in.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on, Queen. I wanted to shout out, though, DJ OJ. We got Nola Natalie. We got Dread Junkie, Mama Chandrika Leonard, Laurita Marie, Mama
Yes.
Tama,
Yes.
Sonia Marie, and many others have joined the live feed. Tracy Elizabeth is there.
Yes, my sister.
And
I am so glad that all of these people are here because they can know how we need their voices as part of the event on Saturday. And the event on Saturday is for adults, right, Shera?
It is.
Yeah.
But if someone wants to, if a parent or someone wants to bring someone younger with them, I would encourage them to do that if they need to.
Gotcha. And the event on Wednesday is for the youth.
It is.
7 to 17.
Yes.
And then we're doing another event for the adults on Saturday. Yeah, awesome.
And Mama Faya, I wanted to speak to some things that you said a few minutes ago. As I've been discussing this more and more online, and just out and about talking to people about it, there have been people who have asked me, and I'm glad they asked me. I'm extremely happy that they felt, you know, comfortable saying what they felt, because a lot of people feel this way. The question is, what does a light-skinned person have to add to this conversation, and why would a light-skinned person even take on this conversation? Like, I want to know why you think that you should talk about this.
Wow.
And I think, you know, initially I didn't get offended. I'm happy that they said that, because that's the reason why we need to have this conversation.
Definitely.
What do you have to add to that?
I appreciate you taking this on. Of course, we know that it has been talked about, like you mentioned, Mama Fire, for a long time. And I think the conversation's become empty and rhetorical. And, you know, there's not a lot of personal experience about it, because many times people who are adversely impacted by colorism, which we all are, but some of us are more aware of that adverse impact, are a bit ashamed of that. And so it brings up, you know, not powerful feelings, and so we'd rather not talk about it because it doesn't seem like it's easily resolved, because we're talking about behaviors. At least we think we're talking about behaviors. I say that we're talking about the internalization of racial oppression, and that's important to make that distinction, that this is not the something, but this is part of the something. This is one of the ways that internalization shows up. And to be able to identify that, to realize that it isn't that I feel this way and it's bad, because without knowing the history of it, we think, well, I shouldn't feel this way about lighter skinned people or about darker skinned people. It's the shame and the denial and the guilt around it, as opposed to who put that in me and where does that come from, and how did it become normative, you know, for me, which requires a collective analysis and not an individual one, but a collective analysis, because we're going to all tell the same story. When I talk about this, or when we talk about this with people all over, no matter how old they are, they all have stories about. I just a few weeks ago, I was somewhere, and a sister who was, you know, like most black families, there's a whole spectrum of different shades, and the sister was saying that when she was a child, she always had the cute shoes or the cute clothes, but her sister was the cute one. You know, when they looked at her, they'd say, "Oh, your shoes are very nice," or that outfit is so nice. But her sister was always the pretty one. Her sister was lighter skinned. And this was how it happens, you know, in families. But I also appreciate the way that you wanted to actively engage, you know, black men and boys in this discussion, because that part isn't always talked about, or isn't often talked about, at least not publicly. And would lead you to believe that black men aren't impacted by, or black men and black boys aren't impacted adversely by colorism at all. But I think that's quite the opposite. I think brothers are very, very much so, and have been, particularly like Brian was talking about. New Orleans is always something special because of the variety of the spectrum in families, and the, you know, the adjacency to whiteness, and how you can be treated differently. You know, how you're presumed to be in charge. The lighter skinned folks are presumed to be in charge, even if they're not. You know, we've talked about this in some of the groups that I run and participate in quite a bit, with black men who are quote unquote professional black men and blue collar black men alike. Everybody's got stories about this, one way or the other. So it is a real thing, and I'm honored to be a part of it, and you know, play a good supporting role.
Yeah, that's right. We're supporting young people doing their bright and shiny thing.
Yeah.
And in particular, Shera, what is your story? Do you have a story to tell about colorism in particular? You know, something that other people can feel and understand?
Yeah. So I'm from Mississippi. I grew up in Mississippi, and where I'm from, there isn't a Creole culture. There isn't a whole lot of race mixing. There isn't a whole lot of too many lighter skinned people with what people would perceive to be what they call good hair and all those things. Though I don't agree with that determination. But my mother was a beautiful dark-skinned woman, and growing up, she would tell me stories about experiences that she had at the hands of her family members, at the hands of her community members. My mama always told me that being beautiful wasn't enough. She talked about how in school the pretty girls or the lighter complected people were treated better. They were automatically passed along, and all of those types of things, and how she had family members who would say she was, you know, as black as a skillet, and they would also be dark skinned as well. And when I started going to school, I began to be ostracized, and I felt like I didn't fit in anywhere. I felt like nobody really accepted me. I was teased, I was bullied, I was talked about a lot. I was physically assaulted many times. I had my hair cut. I've had my hair set on fire. I've gotten into fights with people who said that they were fighting me because I was lighter than them. I've had people tell me, I didn't like you at first because I thought you were stuck up. You reminded me of somebody who was stuck up, and I thought you were too. And so, but I see that you're not like that. And you know, so it was just, and then people would tell me how my mother wasn't beautiful growing up, and I heard that a lot, you know. And being bombarded with that type of stuff is very, it definitely like suppresses you and buries you in a way. And but I always knew, because my mama talked to me about it, I always knew that people who were hurting me were hurt.
Yeah.
And so I would never fault them for the pain that they had and for the pain that they were also causing me or trying to cause me at that time. And it just made me really, really sad, and it made me want to love them much, much more. I was just, you know, it was sad that I felt like people, they hated themselves, and when they looked at you, you looked like what society has said is what beautiful is, and they were mad at you because of that. And so whenever I would get compliments, when people would be like, oh, you got good hair, or I like your hair, or I wish I had this, I wish I had that, I would be, it would pain me even then. Like I hated getting compliments. Whenever someone would give me a compliment, I would I would say something negative about myself or automatically say something amazing about them, and I think that, you know, I still will say amazing things about the people who I interact with, but it definitely impacted me detrimentally, and I'm sure it impacts many other people detrimentally. But I also wanted to add this, that when you talk about the internalization, like Brother Shaq just mentioned, a lot of these things we feel and believe subconsciously, and our subconscious mind is what has been driving our actions and our behaviors, and we don't really realize it. And so sometimes we find ourselves doing something not really knowing why we're doing it, and then we analyze it and we think about it, and then it becomes this aha moment, like, oh my gosh, I really thought that, I really feel that, I'm really doing that.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, aha moments is where we grow.
That's
you know,
right.
when they happen, it's the beginnings of growing outside of who you've been. And so that's what we want to make sure people have during these events that you're curating, you know, that they're looking within, you know. So it's easy to see what racism, white supremacy, colorism, and all these things look like outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But when we really digging in and we're doing the self-work, we look and say, dang, am I doing that very same thing? Or how am I doing that very same thing? And so I think there's an unbalanced look at colorism, and of course, right now, we're all light skin or whatever you call it, medium skin, whatever I mean, it's ridiculous, right? We all black people, politically designated as black people sitting here together.
Right.
But, you know, because of the legacy, the terrible legacy of slavery, the slave trade, and all these different things, enslaving people of, you know, African people and indigenous people of this land, and then saying, well, there were dark-skinned people in the fields and the light-skinned people were in the house, you know, all of that was on purpose.
Right.
We think of the legacy of Willie Lynch, whether it was a real series, you know, whether it was a real document or not, it still holds true as far as the story and the allegory is concerned, that this was a tool of the oppressor to divide black people by skin color.
Right.
You know? And so I think understanding that part, and that's part of understanding colorism, is important, but also like digging deep to say, how does it manifest itself in your own mind?
Right on.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, shout out to our sister Sonia Maria. Folks are commenting. Again, if you like the True Love Movement page, you can comment directly into the feed, as well as if you will go to the Healing Colorism. It's a Facebook event. The video is also playing live there. It's got some more information about times and schedules that were mentioned earlier in the show. But Sonia Maria is talking about much of what you all are saying. She said it a few minutes into the conversation about the people give children backhanded compliments, because I know we're doing something, you're doing something specifically for children.
Yes.
Understanding that this isn't an adult phenomenon, but this is part of the black experience. But people give children backhanded compliments because they haven't healed from colorism, then act surprised about children having low self-esteem, seeking attention, having depression, feeling the need to be overachievers, to compensate for stuff. And, you know, again, this is one sister's assessment on it, and I think that's the general, like, people really do have a lot of analysis around this colorism thing. Like there's I hear experience in there, not theory. You know, I hear some experience, and also there is another sister who is commenting. Angela Gordon said, I actually had to learn to accept myself as a light-skinned woman. I can say that I have projected some of the hate dark women have shown me back out toward them, just because I became bitter about being outcasted as less black. I'm not even that light-skinned. So there's some medium skin, as you just there's some medium skin.
It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And you know, I'm glad she said that, and shout out to Angela, my sister, love you, queen. Because right now we're able to bring into the conversation maybe what not as usually brought into a colorism conversation,
Right.
because it's usually about what dark-skinned people have to go through as being too black, or being criminalized, or being
Right.
seen as ugly and not matching up to the European standard of beauty, all these things. But I think it's, I'm glad that we have some balance. Our dear sister Vonna is coming in to talk about her experiences as a dark-skinned woman, or I like to say brown skin. I don't know where I get that from. I guess my mama also was a beautiful chocolate
Sure.
brown woman, and she always called it brown skin,
Right.
and I'm brown too, I'm brown.
Right.
But I'm saying we're able to give that side, and that side hurts too. Being called light, bright, damn near white. You telling me that, but I don't feel white at all. I don't feel, I don't feel like them. I feel different. I feel like you. I feel like my mama. I feel like, and so having to struggle with that is difficult. And then, the not being black enough piece. And black, no one is really truly quote unquote black. It's a political designation, as Brother Shaq has coined it, but it's also an experience.
That's right.
It's an experience. It's a culture, and in which there is no real color. There's an experience there. So thank you.
Assimilation too. That
You want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely. And also, Shera, just as we're shifting around a little bit in the studio to accommodate folks, the sister Angela was saying to Shera that you're so brave in helping to heal others through your experience. That's important to say too, because this is a topic, though it is present in the minds of many of our people, it isn't always well articulated, and it's not always done in a healthy way, and we tend to do more about the effects of it and less about the psychology of it. And I'm glad that Brian's here also to offer some experience from a black man as a black man into the way this is, because the way you said, Mama Faya, about the your mama didn't say dark skin, she said brown skin. The whole dark and light have connotations,
Yes, they do.
Dark is always considered evil and bad. And
Darkness.
so when you categorize or identify something and you connect it to dark, it's presumptively not something that you want to be. It's just the wording, and then it's codified on purpose. The same way with light skin, and like we had a show some years ago, and I know we can locate it. We did a show called on True Love Movement Hour. We called Unfair Skin, because we understood that the whole language of saying fair skin, because my mother used to describe herself as fair skinned, and people will say that, oh yeah, they've got fairer complexion, and again, not judging those people, but the power of that language, because if these things or this skin is fair, then surely there's got to be unfair skin. And what is the unfair skin? The unfair skin is the darker hue, the browner hue. But it's said without acknowledging that. So in the same way that we talk about colorism without acknowledging racism, and I just want to make sure we stay with that, because colorism wasn't thrusted upon us.
That's right.
Racism.
Yes.
Racism is the disease that is in the room. Colorism is a manifestation of the internalized racial oppression.
Yes.
And that's important too, just so we're clear psychologically, because this is not a philosophical discussion. This is more about our sanity. And it's important for us to just remember that colorism just happens to be a byproduct of something much larger and certainly more sinister, Brian. But your thoughts as a black man, and I think you were going to talk more about the medium hue folk or something in that light? Or?
Yeah, I'll be able to speak on that. But before we get on that, like one of the things that came to me in the conversation y'all were just having was how, colorism is a response to white supremacy in an international space.
Definitely.
So, we thinking about it like here, but, why do we feel need to, have a distinct, Afro-Latina culture or things like that? Or, for instance, I remember a good friend of mine, we were talking about the new Aladdin movie. And how Aladdin is definitely some more of a medium complexion in the movie.
Okay.
And the cartoon, excuse me. But when you look at the actor, he's a light-skinned Indian actor.
Okay.
Or he appeared to be.
Okay.
And so that was like, I look at it, well, hey, even like in all kind of other cultures, how, we have the skin bleaching and everything else, to where white is right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to colorism in our aspects, the individuals, especially in American culture, where white supremacy, after, British colonialism, white supremacy pretty much exploded, is that individuals that are light-skinned are closer to white people. And just because they're closer to white people, then that automatically gives some kind of like notion or socialized idea that makes them more acceptable or nearer to the dominant culture. So I really wanted to speak on how assimilation is very much a part of that, because not only is it seen in skin color, but also seen in our attitudes or the way that we project ourselves. So if we seem to be more quote-unquote American or more capitalistic, wear really clean tuxes, just things that seem very American, no matter how dark we are. Oh, you're not black.
Right.
If we speak properly, oh, you sound like a white man. Yeah. You're not black. So, even though we're speaking in a vein of, what we can see as far as our skin color, it goes beyond that. It goes just in a projection of ourselves or the energy that, if it doesn't seem to be black, I'm not even going to say African, because that's like a whole different space. Right. But if it's just like, it doesn't seem to be black, then you just, you're not black in spirit. Right. So, colorism attaches to that in a vein too, where this is all about assimilation. This is all about being as close to white people as possible. And when, it's harder for people who are of darker complexion to easily move towards that space. Yeah. Because who you are, your hue, just like deflects that. Like, hey, you're like, and not only that, but you seem to be more aggressive, more masculine. Serena Williams is a perfect example. Not only is she, has a dark complexion, but she has like very toned and strong features. Oh my God, she looks like a man. Or she doesn't have anything that's feminine about her.
She as fine as can be, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. So, and then it goes like, coming on to like the male perspective, or just, looking at it, in a social media standpoint, you can look at just how we treat Drake. Light-skinned attitudes, like, oh man, you light-skinned, you acting light-skinned. So like, if you seem to be sensitive, or you seem to be of the feminine energy of any kind, then, and don't be light-skinned and then be soft, oh man, you acting light-skinned. And the same thing, brothers that are darker are seen to be more masculine, more aggressive, and just, seemingly has more testosterone, so all of that is implicated in this transgression from racism. Definitely. Where we are all assumptive upon, with our paradigm. So you're a lighter skinned person, I feel like you're getting something. Say I was a person of darker complexion, because I'm in a medium spectrum. You're of lighter complexion, I'm darker. Oh, well, you're better. And then you're lighter, and then compared to the darker person, I have to prove how black I am. Right. Just based upon what I look like, which is just a whole nother variable of things. So, but being a medium person, I really, it's kind of weird because... You
called yourself as medium before.
Yeah, because one, I haven't done that.
Sounds more like a shirt.
And two, on top of that, you have people where you kind of get both of it. You get both of it. So, right. Like I would have people, say, well, you know what I'm talking about, you red. Right. And like I never even thought of myself as red until people started calling me red. Right. And then, you have people who are lighter, they'll just be like, well, you don't understand, you're darker. Right. And, coming from a family where, my grandmother of Honduran descent is very dark skinned. And my grandfather, who I'm more than sure we have a mulatto heritage, is pretty light skinned. So my family is like the rainbow. I have some really dark skinned family members and some really, brighter members.
Right.
And, just like the passive activity in our family, because, my grandparents had like 12 children. So I have like 50 first cousins. So just like the passive, like microaggressions that would happen in between our family based upon perceived notice of, oh, are you treating us like this because we're lighter?
Right.
Where,
Valid question.
when we're having like arguments and just, things that kind of go with not understanding what it's like to be, or not really feeling like you connect to what it's like to be black in America.
Right.
And we've challenged some of our cousins on that because they come from, a family, a nucleus that says that white is right.
Oh, yeah.
And, now they're challenging it, but at one point, it was like, hey, you really did receive the feeling that you thought you were better. Your other side of your family has this real, like, Creole, like, strong Creole mulatto heritage, which Creole, just want to make sure I clear this up, Creole does not just mean mulatto.
Well, mulatto means mute.
Mute. Well, you know what I mean.
But that's important because that's a mute. Mulatto is a mute.
But Creole is a person born in the country, but of a people not indigenous to it.
Right.
So you can have people who can consider themselves to be Creole from all black hues. Back when it was first, spoke of, just colonialists that would come down and they would have children. Their children would be considered Creoles. I know a lot of Haitian individuals who would consider themselves to be Creoles, especially coming down here, but even in Haiti would consider themselves to be Creoles. So, in New Orleans, it just kind of transferred to this status, and I think it has a lot to deal with the placage culture that I was speaking of earlier.
It's all of that.
And the quadrant balls, and I know that people that say that the quadrant balls didn't even exist, and then there's people that are like, oh well, we have wheels and all this other stuff that shows that these things actually happened. And how we come down to having artisans in the Seventh Ward, and say even in the Treme area, that like hold really strongly to this idea of I'm not black, I'm Creole.
Exactly.
Going back to the whole status idea of it.
Right.
So, being somebody that is a medium complexion, born in a family where you have those two like dynamics, and not to mention in school, for guys, it wasn't really anything like, we weren't like setting each other hair on fire or anything like that. But it was like, hey, when it came to playing the dozens, roasting a ribbon, you definitely was talked about when it came to your complexion. Don't be black.
Right.
I mean, it's like we're coming at you all day. So, and that was just ingrained, and it was accepted and okay. Hey, how you doing?
Right.
So, but yeah, I really wanted to speak on the assimilation piece and how this just like, even though we're talking about colorism, it goes like, in all those facets of what assimilation means, what it means to be white. So.
Well, thank you for that, brother. I do appreciate that. And I wanted just to if you're just tuning in, this is True Love Movement Tuesdays here on WBOK 1230 and Real Talk for Real Times. And we have a studio full today with special guests. And we're dealing with healing colorism, which we've got a series of events that are coming up beginning tomorrow for the young people and on Saturday for the grown folks. And we also have the lines lit up. It's interesting that we didn't give out the call-in number at all, but we do in fact have the lines lit up. So just to do that now at 504-260-9265. Again, the call-in number is 504-260-9265 here on the True Love Movement Tuesdays. Again, like us on Facebook, like True Love Movement on Facebook, and you can join us live in the studio and see all the folks we got. But we got our lines lit up, so we want to get our callers into this conversation. Thank you for holding. What's happening? Oh, fantastic, brother. What's happening?
And I just want to follow from the brothers. The third group, I don't think that group has it as hard as light skin and the dark skin black.
Right.
You just categorize. But I know I think medium blacks have a special situation too, because some medium skin blacks will say, well, man, I wish I was lighter, you know, or some medium skin blacks will say, well, I wish I was darker, you know, depending on what the predominant preference is at that point in time. And or some people may not have that at all. But I think the medium skin blacks have their own thing of, if they're not solidly ingrained in terms of who they are, they may desire to be lighter, they may desire to be darker.
Right.
It's interesting. I went to, you're familiar with the Gullah Geechees of South Carolina, right?
Yes, absolutely. Our sister Kendra Joy is from those folk. Yeah.
Yeah, and they definitely get a lot darker, but those are the blacks who were the least amount of intergenerational, interracial interaction between the blacks and whites occurred in those Gullah Geechee regions between Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida, maybe some part of North Carolina. So there's a tendency to you'll find very, very dark-skinned, beautiful blacks there, you know. And so when I went there, I said, man, I saw these dark-skinned blacks. I said, man, I need to get a tan or something, you know, because I just haven't seen so many dark-skinned blacks before until I went there.
Right.
And it was very interesting to see, because I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. And from, you know, being in Ohio, you know, you have a whole lot of medium-skinned blacks, but you didn't have a lot of you had some dark-skinned blacks, and they really called H-E-double-L, you know. Yeah. And I really felt bad for them. And, you know, of course, you had light-skinned blacks, too. But the predominant color, from what I can tell and remember, and still today, you know, is medium-skinned blacks. So I think the medium-skinned blacks have their own case of situations that they have to deal with psychologically also.
Right.
So, but, again, I don't think it's to the degree of what your darker-skinned blacks have gone through and also your lighter-skinned blacks have gone through.
Well, brother, I'm glad that we're keeping the conversation here in the middle. We would love to hear from you, though, in terms of your experience, wherever you are on the spectrum, just to keep it aligned with our personal experiences, because I think those are the most impactful in regard to, you know, how people really feel, you know. Mm-hmm. What's your experience in terms of colorism in ways it has impacted you?
And just in terms of, well, it just depends on, you know, how, like when I went to South Carolina, I said, man, I need to get tan. I guess I'm telling myself I need to get darker, but, you know, I don't need to get darker. I'm blessed to be the skin color that I am. Right. You know, and so I think that's something that, you know, I think each shade, you know, people have to categorize it as that, but each one of us has to be satisfied and feel blessed to be whatever shade that we are. You know, right? You know, to me, God is a God of perfection, and God doesn't make any mistakes. That's right. So I think from a spiritual perspective, we have to look at it that way. And if we don't look at it that way, what are we saying about God? Did God make a mistake in making us the shade that we are? You know, so from the spiritual perspective, I think it's mandatory that we appreciate our particular skin shade and color, because we're made this shade of particular color for a particular reason and purpose. You know, so I think that whenever we get off our spiritual focus and our cultural focus, then we will begin to want to look like something that we aren't. You know. Right on. And you know, I think now this is he went all the way to being white. But you know, Michael Jackson is a medium-skinned brother. He was a nice-looking guy, but he definitely was not. To me, it didn't sound like he was. Not they said it was vitiligo or whatever, but you know, I'm thinking he may have had some skin color alteration done. You have Sammy Sosa, a baseball player, who's a medium-skinned brother. He's definitely white-looking now. You know, he had changing his skin color. So to me, it hits all spectrums, whether it's light skin, medium skin, or dark skin. Each one of those groups have their own psychological challenges, and I'll say spiritual challenges and cultural challenges that they have to meet the bar. You know, they have to come up to the task and feel satisfied and grateful of who we are.
That's right. That's right, brother. But we appreciate your insight and your personal reflection, as well as your analysis on just the whole of our people, regardless of where they are. I agree, and I think we collectively agree that colorism definitely has impacted all of our people.
Right. So, again, I think we're all beautiful shades and colors, and we just have to come to that. We have to come to grips and appreciate that and understand that and value that wholly.
That's
and
right.
I think this has been going on since, you know, I guess the early...
Since they created it.
1700s, you know.
This has been going on since they created it. Yeah, that's important that we ain't passive about it. It didn't fall out of the sky. This was created.
Yeah.
That's the important word you mentioned is passive. If we don't actively work on that, we will automatically fall into the trap of wanting to look differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's an active process of valuing and appreciating who and what we are. Otherwise, we will fall back into wanting to look like somebody else, depending on what's popular. I guess back in the 80s and 90s, dark skin was popular because of Michael Jordan, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, you had a lot of light skinned brothers who were popular. So
It's
it just sort of
ridiculous.
comes and goes with whatever the latest shade of popularity is. If you're at that particular shade that's popular at that point in time, and you're not grounded spiritually and culturally, you may want to end up looking like them.
Well, brother, I think we should also even acknowledge in that discourse the criteria for popularity, but that is code for white folks like him. See, white folks like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan received financial rewards, so he became acceptable to white folks. Therefore, other brothers who were of similar hue could reap benefits because there was some groove already there that darker skin. Because we already know that brown skin, just black in general, is entertaining for white folks. I think we should be clear about that. And just like with lighter skin black folks, again, whoever white people like is what the thing is. That's what sets the trends. Because when white folks like, whatever they like, they invest money in it, and then that gives it a value, gives it a monetary value in America. Which is ruled by capitalism. So there's already a trajectory for what happens when the dominant culture likes something. And so we've been clamoring for and competing to be liked, to be white adjacent since they created this.
Another thing I heard back, just maybe some of our grandparents or great-grandparents' time, like a light-skinned black may have had a tendency to want to marry a dark-skinned black, and a dark-skinned black may have wanted to marry a lighter-skinned black to meet whatever desire they had, in terms of their perception of their skin color or whatever.
Right.
But they said that was a trend that occurred too, different shades being attracted to a different shade other than themselves,
Yes.
So it's just interesting the different ways in which the mind will, what the mind will do to seek some kind of satisfaction and value. So it goes in terms of what type of person we would choose, based on skin color at times.
Right. Trying to get our humanity back is what we've been doing.
Right. Exactly. That's the best way
Whatever
to do it,
shade.
All right. Well, thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother. We
so much.
appreciate it and hope that you'll be able to come out and participate in some of the discussions or tell folks about it. We're going to drop it in the comment section on the Facebook live feed. If you like True Love Movement on Facebook, you can join the live feed. Thank you, dear brother.
All right, God bless you.
Still got the lines lit up. And Mama Fire, you had something?
I did, right before we answer, because I know we're getting ready to take a break, but I want to invite our special guest, Vonna, who is here. Thank you for being here, my sister. If you want to just introduce yourself, and then we'll get to the callers, and we'll take a break and be right back.
Hello, everybody. I'm Vonna. Thank you guys for having me here. I'm interested and excited to interact in this dialogue about colorism. We know New Orleans is a city where we're celebrating like the tricentennial, as if, like Brother Shaq just mentioned, New Orleans started when white folks said it started, but we know black people have been thriving and surviving in this city for a long time. So it's nice to engage in this discourse about colorism with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, so we have another caller. We are ready for your caller. Welcome to the True Love Movement. Welcome to True Love Movement Tuesdays. This is Mama Fire. How you doing?
How y'all doing? I think in terms of colorism and my own experience, I'm from South Florida. And so what ended up happening for me growing up, and I was lighter complexion. People would ask me, well, you don't look black. What are you? Are you mixed? Like, what are you mixed with? Are you mixed with Cuban? Are you black and something else? In which, culturally for South Florida, that has been the case for many, many years as African Americans have kind of gotten washed out of South Florida culture. And there's been a number of instances where I've told someone, no, I'm black. My father's black, my mother's black, but they still want to impose this mixture of, well, your complexion looks too good, or your hair curls, your hair curls is a little too soft for you to just be black. And I think culturally, from a cultural standpoint, I think colorism plays a major divide, because what ends up happening is a person of lighter complexion is now removed from their African diaspora, or removed from their African roots, in a sense. So now they have to dive into, well, who do I stand with culturally because of my complexion, or because of how people perceive me? Where do I land on it? And I think culture plays a major part with a lot of issues pertaining to colorism within our community as people, because we're not able to identify with one single culture. Other than if you are a black person, and when I say black, I'm saying a person of darker complexion, you are considered to come from a project. You are considered to be a poor, no value. You smoke weed. You the only thing you know how to do is run fast, play ball. You can't add or subtract. You can't read. You're feeding off the government. So these are the things that are associated with being of darker complexion versus being of lighter complexion. Oh, well, you speak proper, but no, it does. I'm black. We're all black. Black comes in many shades.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I think the closer we can get to having a cultural identity for ourselves without European and Anglo-Saxon influence, I think the closer we can come to end colorism in a way. Because I have a daughter, and she is not red, as they would say here. They used to call me red, but I'm not. I don't allow people to call my daughter red. No, she's brown. She's black. She's of African descent. So I think once we start to hold each other accountable on that level, which is a place that I feel like we have to get comfortable with as a community, we don't really hold each other accountable in these very how can I say, like, detailed ways in which we can kind of hold each other up in our Africanness, if you will.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing that. And shout out to the brothers today, really calling in. Thank you for sharing that. You're right. We know what that red means. We know what that yellow means. We know, as far as brown in our culture here in New Orleans. I was always considered red, and I like how that's close to indigenous too. Close to our Native American roots. As well, that quote unquote red. But you're right, we're all black. And I noticed you said in colorism, and that's what I like about Shera's event that she's doing. She says healing colorism, right? Because we realize we have the power. That no one's coming to end it for us. No one's coming to hit a gavel and say, colorism has ended, everyone. This is about healing it in us and healing it in each other. So thank you for calling, brother.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate his perspective, because that's the thing that we've been wanting, is for the men to come and tell us what they've experienced and how they've internalized it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we have one more.
One more caller.
Before the break.
One more before the break. Thank you for calling the True Love Movement Tuesdays. This is Mama Fire.
Hey, how y'all doing? Thank you for taking my call.
All right.
I want to make two comments. I'm going to make my personal testimony, and Brother Shaq, if you could maybe elaborate on the last thing I'm going to say. And Mama Fire, sorry, or the pen. But my thing is, I was blessed with a two-family home, and I wouldn't say I lived a sheltered life, but, maybe a typical life, with two parents, which I was blessed with. But coming up, like going to high school and whatnot, my hair was just a tad bit curly, and I felt that, I got the same things everybody experienced, being maybe looked at as maybe not all the way black and whatnot. And I wanted so bad to be a part of my people that I was kind of leaning towards the ones that I saw as, kind of maybe rough and tough, and who did things that were like, just, cutting class, and I just leaned towards who my perception of being black was. And so therefore it kind of impacted me in school and impacted my decisions I made. And, it's really serious if you don't have, like, a background, you know what I mean? Or I felt.
And I just want to give my quick testimony. So I
Thank
definitely
you.
think for you it's important because right now they can make life-changing decisions based on how they feel about themselves and how they feel others. But the last comment was it goes even deeper to grandparents and great-grandparents.
Yeah.
And the Hermetic curse, which, you know, I believe, and I think we all know it was a made-up story to justify enslavement of blacks. So it goes religious. It got deep religious roots. They go way back to grandparents, great-grandparents, and, you know, even Jesus being white. So it all comes still back to, you know, slavery and everything else. And if y'all want to add anything towards that, that's what I was mentioning. But that was just my quick testimony. That is real serious, real deep. And, you know, you could make a decision that can impact your life forever if you don't really, you know what I mean, have the appreciation of who you are and, you know, just being blessed with. Just knowing that you're blessed wherever you are and whatever position you're in. And that, who said this better? Black excellence. I forget what rapper. But that's what we all need to achieve for. And that could be the underlying thing for all of us.
Right
Black
on.
excellence for us all. And thank y'all for letting me make my comment.
Right on.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
We do appreciate that, and we appreciate all of you rocking with us here on True Love Movement Tuesdays on WBOK 12:30 a.m. Real Talk for Real Time. I want you to hold tight with us. Don't go nowhere. And matter of fact, get some more people because you think that first hour is something. Wait till you get a load of this second hour. So I'm Brother Shaq.
And Mama Fire.
Hold tight to the other side of the break, family. We'll be right back.
All right. Thank y'all so much. We are still on live.
We're still on live.
And I want to just talk about some of the comments that are on the Facebook Live feed.
That's right.
Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for sharing the show as well as sharing your comments. But this one really struck. This is our sister Shantice Denise. She is always a part of the True Love Movement. Our True Love Movement Tuesdays. We love Shantice, and she says,
"Oh,
I was heavily teased on my skin tone and compared to a gorilla. I heard when I was really young a paper bag test, and learned even more from that as far as the origin and the purpose. Then I looked at it as so confusing because I take things so literal in my mind and was like, which paper bag do I use? LOL. But either way, I was darker and everyone in my family lighter. I thought something was wrong with me. This was real young when I looked into this. So, yeah, I mean, imagine being so young and just someone else telling you, because we remember when we were young, right? Really young, before somebody told you were ugly, somebody told you were fat, before somebody told you anything about yourself, you just was all right. You were just running around doing your thing. All right, you look in the mirror, you brush your teeth, you just are who you are. And then somebody comes and tells you you're not good enough. It tells you you're a gorilla and tell you, I mean, that shatters the sense of self. That shatters who you thought you were. You thought you were, you belonged, that you were here and you were here on purpose, and then somebody tells you you're not good enough. And that can, and that's what we're all still holding on to in many, many ways. That's why healing colorism is important.
That's right.
So I would like to, if anybody want to talk about that, we still on live Facebook.
Let's hear from you, Vonna, if
Well,
we
I
could.
just have this story that's in my head from a young lady that I went to college with. Very light skinned, from like the Kelowna Vacherie area, if y'all know that area, and colorism is very deep, what they call up the road, right? And that's just alluding to a whole nother thing. My mom is from St. Charles Parish, right? It's all very old mentality and all that stuff. So they even refer to direct geographic direction. Up the road, the up is where the light people are from, and down the road is where the dark people are. So that's a piece of it. And then, so this young lady, like I said, she shared a story. We were just a bunch of girlfriends sharing stuff, and talking about how her brother, who everybody in their family, very light-skinned, brought home a dark-skinned female, and the family was like, oh, he brought home a black girl. As if they themselves were not black. They had removed themselves, even if psychologically, even if not like on purpose like that, but just amongst themselves talking about it with the family. It was like he had brought home a black girl. So that story always just sticks with me when I think about colorism, because we do like place value of ourselves with that kind of stuff. And me as a dark-skinned female, I see times like there are men who value your humanity based on your color, skin color, and so it's like you gotta be strong and facing these demons every day to get like not strong, but you have to face it, like the guy said on the comment just now about how it's hard to talk to the details sometimes, and so it's cool to have the experiences to go back and say, oh my God, I experienced that, and it stuck with me.
Yeah. And it impacts us, y'all, and we have to be real about how it impacts our self-esteem, self-worth, how it impacts, how we parent. One sister said, my little sister is browner than me and our brother. This is Tamara Prosper. She said, sometimes her friends used to tease her and say she must be adopted when she saw a family picture. How does that make you feel about yourself, siblings, parents, grandparents? It really goes
Makes you
deep.
feel disconnected.
That's right. All right, family. Brother Shaq
Mama Fire.
for True Love Movement Tuesdays. Welcome back, everyone, on this Healing Colorism in the studio. WBOK 1230 AM, Real Talk for Real Times, family. Upcoming events on tomorrow. The youth from 7 to 17 at Crescent City Boxing Gym starting at 11 o'clock. Is that right, Shera?
Yeah.
11 o'clock, and that's the address is
3101 Irado.
3101 Irado Street. That is right next to the Claiborne overpass on the down ramp, family, right near Martin Luther King and South Claiborne. Also near the True Love Movement Healing Space in the central and mid-city area, central city area. If you're just joining us, we're talking about healing colorism today, family, on True Love Movement Tuesdays. Very rich conversation. The comments on the True Love Movement page on Facebook in the live feed are incredible. We were just talking about those during the break. We read a few. We've got a wonderful studio here with our sister Vonna. We've got Shera. We got Brian behind the camera over there. Shout out to the behind the scenes brother. We got Jazz over there on the other side of the glass holding it all together. We've got every hue in here.
Yes, we do.
You understand?
And can I shout out to Shera real quick,
Yes.
just for conceptualizing this and for your heart and bravery to not only decide you were going to do this, but actually do it.
Yeah.
And the piece with the children is so important. You're a teacher, so you know how to get into developing minds. But it's important because they need to, our young people need to be having this conversation now, so they don't have to have it when we're 30, 40 years old. We don't need to talk about it anymore once it's healed. We can eradicate it through the healing of it. So thank you for doing this specifically with the children tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, and also I want to say thank you to everyone in this room right now. That's Brian and Vonna and Brother Shaq and Mama Fire, and then there's some other people that are going to be coming through, Big E and a few other people are going to be coming through. I just want to say thank you to all of them. I want to say thank you to all the people who are going to be there and participate, because each and every last one of us is very vital and important to this puzzle, to this piece. We all need to come together and support one another in this healing process, and this is the reason why I wanted to do this, because a lot of people have gone to colorism events before, and all they did was, maybe discuss, talk about their experience or watch a movie. But we want to talk about solutions. We really want to talk about what we can do to stop perpetuating this thing, and that's what I wanted to bring a little different to what I've seen before.
Yeah, thank you.
Right on. We appreciate that. There is a necessity to talk about these things because people are carrying them around. I know, Mama Fire, you were just reading a comment from a sister who had mentioned about her brother,
Her sister, who was darker than everyone else, and thought something about, people would say she was adopted.
Yeah, Tamara Prosper. Yeah, she said, my little sister, this was during the break we were talking about this, but she said, my little sister is browner than me and our brother. She said people, sometimes her friends, used to tease her and say she must be adopted when they saw our family picture. That's heavy. That's heavy. And so these are things, so people have a lot of memories that come from childhood. You know, so this isn't a thing that ends up being over with. Unfortunately, this is a lifelong struggle. Again, with colorism.
Yeah, and if you know about black, if you know about the color, if you just think about the color black, it's every color, it's everything in one space, and so it has the ability to spread itself in any direction as
That's
far
right.
as, you know, different shades. You know, me and my brothers are all three different shades, you know, and we all look alike, but we all three different shades. That's the power of black.
Right.
That's what
Melanin.
it does in our DNA and in our cells and in our genes, you know.
Mhm.
It just spreads itself to beautiful shades. And I think what I would like, because I see it all the time as a school counselor, when I was working with young people, you too black, you know. There's a such thing as too black.
Yep.
And so, Vonna, would you like to talk about that? Does that resonate with you in any way? Did you feel that, or has that happened to you?
Have I ever felt too black? I know that my mom is the darkest of her siblings, and so that makes me and my brother darker than all of our cousins. But I never internalized that in a negative way, because my mom is a beautiful black woman and she carries herself that way, and so I had that great example. But it also still does, like the sister said about cousins saying, "Oh, you adopt," joking. Because kids joke, but even into adulthood, that stuff is rooted in something. Those jokes and that humor, and sometimes we're trying to salve and balm ourselves from the pain that we've had. But I think that right now, the thing that I deal with the most is helping comb through some of that generational stuff with my mom. Stuff that she'll say like, "Don't keep Layla out in that sun; she gonna get too black."
Yeah.
What's too black?
Right.
Are we black? What you mean? So like just calling to attention those moments, like about the sun, about things about her hair, don't do this and that. Her hair is all look like it's all over the place. Well, no, that's how it grows out of her head. So, you know, like coming to love the things about ourselves that are natural, and calling out the things in a way of love, using the truth not as a weapon, but using the truth in a way that we can heal ourselves.
Yeah, love it. I love it. I love it. Have you ever seen that, Shera, in the schools that you've worked in?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I can't even tell you how much. I've had to stop in the middle of so many different lessons to stop kids from going in on each other. From, you know, if the lights go out, I can't see you, or just definitely talking about people being too black, also talking about them being too light, and so when generally with the boys, I'll say when I stop them from teasing one another, they'll say, you know, "Oh, we just playing, it's not a big deal, we just playing," and then about a week later they be ready to fight. And generally, like the instance I'm speaking of, it was my darker complected brother, who was really, really, really affected by those jokes that were just jokes a week before. And then let's say I've had young girls come to me that don't even take my class, who may not be really dark skinned but had larger lips, and she's coming to me crying because people are teasing her about her lips, and a month later she is being caught in the bathroom with the same boys, 2 and 3 different boys, who she was just coming to me a month prior because they were teasing her about her lips. And
it has an impact.
It definitely does, and it continues over and over and over again. I've had a child, I heard someone calling a child's mama a gorilla or ape, and I told her to stop, and she was like, "Well, he said it too." And I interrogated that. The boy was going around saying that his mama was ugly because people had been telling him for years that his mama was ugly, and so rather than have them tell him first, he would say it so that he would be in on the joke instead of on the outside of the joke, and that is so painful.
Yeah,
so painful.
It is, and this, you know, perpetuates our decisions in life. You know, we talked about earlier. We met earlier and talked about like our preferences as far as who we decide to be with or who we decide to have children with. We say, you know, my mama was ugly. People call me too black, so I'm gonna make sure I have a child who is not too black. You know, you make that decision as far as, you know, instead of someone who you love or just falling in love or meeting someone, it doesn't matter what color their skin is. And then people say, oh, you can have preferences. Everybody can have preferences. So, but where do they come from? What is it rooted in? Definitely. And that's what we're going to be talking about as we heal these things. That's why it's important to look deeper into ourselves to see how does it impact us in particular, right? Because we can talk about outside of ourselves so easily. And our people not really outside of ourselves. We're all together in this thing, but it's important to look at the micro. Look at yourself under the microscope. What you think, Brother Shera?
Well, I think what Shera was talking about was worth us just for a moment. I know we got a call, and I'm grateful for that, and I'll take this opportunity to give out the call-in number at 504-260-9265. Again, the call-in number is 504-260-9265. But you know, when Shera was saying about the young sister being in the bathroom with these boys, that brought to mind the ways in which folk with African features, as well as hue, darker hues, browner hues, are fetishized in ways that cause them to do self-deprecating kinds of things, and how that ends up being exploited by other people who are impacted differently than colorism, and like what Mama Faya was saying, that affects your choices, and then all of the things that go along with folk making them kind of choices in terms of where that leads. And then there's this idea of being rewarded, because everything we're talking about as it relates to how colorism impacts every one of us here in the room has to do with the reward that you get from white folks or from whiteness, because it's the adjacency to it. And so if you happen to be nearer to whiteness in appearance, you're going to have a certain kind of experience, because people are socialized to recognize the whiter is righter. And it's not limited to black folk, although that is our experience, that's what we're talking about. But inside of every group, it is the same, whether you're talking about Latina, you're talking Asian, it's still the same thing. The lighter, the nearer to white, are the ones who have a very different kind of experience in that caste system. And so I don't think we should lose the fact that this whole colorism and colorizing, like with the lightning, the brother who called talked about Sammy Sosa, the whole idea was that you get rewards, you get goodies. The more you can appear, I know our brother Brian mentioned the brothers in dressing a certain way or talking a certain way, the brothers who may be on the browner side or have the darker hue, because the reward there is they get perceived to be safe Negroes. You know, when they can, yeah, they're non-threatening. They can be quote unquote darker skinned, but if they, you know, that they speak quote unquote the proper, you know, English, so to speak, and they will wear a tuxedo, whatever, they get rewarded because they don't appear threatening to the dominant culture. I met a brother in, I don't know, Virginia somewhere not long ago, and he had that same experience. He had very low self-esteem because he was very, very dark-skinned. He expressed this. But when he moved to Europe, he was fetishized. He didn't call it that. He was just saying, they were saying how beautiful I was. And he didn't want to come back to America because that was the inverse of the experience that he had. He was growing. He said when he was a little boy, they called him a monkey. This is his own people. But when he got there, white people said he was gorgeous and, you know, amazing, and he had never had an experience like that. And so really, on the surface, it looks like, you know, white people said nice things about him, but what ended up happening is he had an experience where his humanity seemed to be validated from folk outside him, which is what our people are looking for. They're looking to be, you know, loved and cared for and honored just simply because they show up. And we know that this is, the colorism has the temperature on that here in America. And so if you happen to be further away from whiteness, you're going to have a different kind of experience from those within your immediate culture as well as the dominant culture. And I think that's important that we make sure that it's understood that these things are happening because they're benefits to them or they're punishments, you know, if you happen to be on the darker side What do you say about that, Shera?
Well, you made me think about a friend of mine from college who, I went to HBCU, but he had come from a PWI, a predominantly white institution, and his whole life he had been going to just predominantly white schools, and I noticed how whenever we would go in public and we would be speaking to especially white people, his voice would go all the way up here. and I asked him about that. What is that? And I found out that was him being non-threatening.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Right.
I thought that it really, I couldn't believe it.
That's right. Well, but see, that's what, when we talk about the ways in which racism dehumanizes all of us, that's what we're saying. That he's got to deprecate himself. He's got to be something other than what he naturally is for the sake of other people feeling better, so that they will reward him in some kind of a way. Because that's what it's really rooted in. If I make these if I make these people feel comfortable, then I'm going to get some goodies that I couldn't get otherwise if they were like, oh no, he's a big, black, because he's always big and black goes together. He's always a big and black Negro, you know what I'm saying, which presumes danger to white folks, and we should also, or to the dominant culture collectively. I'm just going to collectivize them. I'm not going to even individualize them. I'm going to collectivize them on this. We should point that out, because why would they be afraid? Why would there be some fear for those in the dominant culture about the big black Negro? Why would they be afraid? Why would you think they'd be afraid?
You know the answer to this, man.
I asked the question because I think we should all think about that. Like,
Yes.
like we don't think about it. We accept it because we know the answer, and we don't really analyze that. Had they not done something to us, they wouldn't have anything to be afraid of. So that's important, that their fears are rooted in their own action.
Definitely.
Not in our existence.
So, we talk about this all the time. It comes back to survival and ownership.
Yep.
I was on Facebook earlier, and Brother Quest had shared a post from, I believe, one of his professors, and he was speaking in depth about this, where what's going on is that, as you know, my work, is really moving towards how agriculture is really the precursor to all inequality and war, which agriculture is the dawn of ownership.
Yep.
So think about it. Once you start planting, you come from a hunter-gatherer type situation, and you start planting, you need to own land to plant. When you own land and you also have population booms, you need to protect that land from other people who have population booms. They may want to take that land.
That's right.
So then what we're dealing with is white people have this hyper agricultural reaction that has happened. And colonialism, which is, the birth of white supremacy, is what that is. So it's a hoarding of resources. I'm going to hoard resources so that I ensure my survival and the survival of the people that look like me, which is a response to agriculture. You have tribes now that exist, which turn into cities and states and countries.
That's right.
But then on top of that, let me get a little smarter. I'm going to make it so where everybody else in the world also has to adhere to the system that I have now created for survival. And since I'm making the rules, now everybody has to follow them.
Right.
And since I have the power, not only the power of the resources, but the power to enforce and maintain those resources, I can define who gets it too. And then I can define who I'm going to give the menial labor, or, how I'm going to divvy up that power to individuals that don't look like me, because obviously we're just better because we figured this shit out. So excuse my language. But yeah, so basically this is a game about survival. A lot of work that I'm looking into right now is how can we go back to that natural aspect of what we were. And that's really rooted in a lot of reflective and natural work, like, and a lot of work that pretty much moves away from ownership and comparison and the idea about what is scarcity, which I learned a lot about that from y'all. You know, scarcity breeds competition, breeds jealousy, and all these other things. So, like, really think about what is the root cause of all of this. When it comes to colorism, I mean, outside of things that I just mentioned, you know, we go back to Plessy versus Ferguson. We can just go back to, like you were saying, Willie Lynch, and how those simple things, well, I say simple, but those things seen as simple, but very complex in the responses to, has now defined how we interact with each other.
Right.
You know, so think about it. This is a competition. And while it's presented as a competition, and we are reacting to it as if it is, so now we're doing things like hurting each other, trying to get ahead of each other, and trying to take resources from each other. So that's my take on that.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Dominance. I think what a big black man says is dominance.
Right. And what do you say, sister?
I think it shows kind of in the media, well, not kind of, very clearly in the media if you're paying attention, in like Hollywood and movies and commercials, like they choose to use the big black man for like a security commercial or like things that they can commodify to give that dark black person goodie points, and it still dehumanizes them just enough that they feel comfortable around them, but still contorting their humanism by presenting them as like a security guard, you know, like this securing thing. So I think seeing that, and then like seeing the parallel of like in family situations where the dark-skinned black woman is usually like the problem female, and like the light-skinned woman is the trophy wife. So when we see stuff like that being perpetuated, I think it helps with the competition, because it's like, it's a value. I think it's like a value system that we are placing on ourselves at this point.
Right
That's
on.
right. I like to call in for some first-time callers. Call the solution line, 504-260-9265. We're asking for callers to call in WBOK 1230 AM, 504-260-9265. Thank you, Vonna. Thank you for that. And what do you say, Shera?
So Vonna just made a very interesting point. It made me think about you know those Allstate commercials. You know, it is security. It's like
You're in good hands.
Yeah, you're in good hands, and they've used this very handsome
hello
black man to provide or to make someone feel like they're going to be taken care of, or like they're secure.
Yeah, it's very, very true. I didn't think about that. But then on the other side, you know, as far as police are concerned, OMG, and as far as profiling and these types of things, you know, I would love a man to speak on that and speak on, you know, being profiled as any black man. You know, they're not looking at the shade a lot of the time. You know, they're looking at if you are just a black man. What do you say about that, Brian? I don't want to bring up nothing. I don't want to touch no tender spots now.
Yeah, that's a very tender spot for me. I've been on the other side of a barrel of a gun from a police officer.
Yeah.
Just going down St. Claude. And you know, it's very dehumanizing when you know that your life can be taken in an instant and you have no control over that. Like another call, literally, is why I'm here, why I think I'm here. You know, and this is coming, you know, I'm not very dark. I'm not a big guy. You know, it hurts.
Take a couple of deep breaths.
You know,
yeah. I think too, that idea it doesn't really matter to white people at all, really, and it's mattering to us so much what skin color we are, what shade of black we are. But when it comes down to the quote unquote justice system, when it comes down to those who perpetuate these deep-rooted issues in our system, they could care less what color we are. And we're fighting each other on color. It's time for it to heal. And that's the reason why I think it's important to do this work, because who can heal colorism? Who can do that part? We can. Only we can, White people, I'm not even sure how it appears in their race, if it does. I know they have olive-skinned people, they have Italian people, and they have all these different people. But as far as us, and we are concerned, we are hurting each other in this way, and we are the ones that can heal it. So I want to thank you, Brian, for sharing your perspective on that. And we all are healing from something. We've all been through something, and I think your events are an effort to galvanize us, but also unify us in this healing effort. Thank you.
I'd like to say this too, with regard to black men and the whole idea of security. There's something psychological that happens when there is a big black man that is protecting the white establishment. It's very, very comforting because he's the symbolism of all that could happen to them, could go wrong, and so there he is protecting. And so some of the greatest protectors of the dominant culture have always been big black men. And for the dominant culture, because of how they came to be the way that they are, security is of paramount importance. Security is if you look at a national priority with folks who are into the nation's politics, the Department of Defense fiscal budget is hovering around $700 billion.
Sure.
That's a pretty good bit of money, $700 billion, because comparatively, the Department of Education, which people are always talking about the Department of Education, particularly in New Orleans, and things with schools and supplies and resources. Well, the Department of Ed's operating budget is $70 billion. So $70 billion to educate and $700 billion to protect. So that shows you that you're afraid of something, and you could not have that kind of fear had you not done something. So because the money in a capitalist society directs the priorities. The money tells you what the ethics are, and these aren't decisions that anybody here in this room made. So this is not people of color who decided those kinds of things, but in the psyche of whiteness, because we're not very clear about how that works. We don't study the dominant culture. We can tell you all about black folks and colorism and everything else. We don't study the dominant culture. Typically, because we're not afforded the opportunity to, because we're trying to survive, we don't have the experience of security. We are an insecure people because we don't have the experience of safety. I ask black folks everywhere, where do you feel safe? And they'll name their house, possibly, but not everybody, because they got people at home that sometimes doing stuff. Sometimes they'll say church. One brother said the other night he felt safe in his dreams. This was a young brother. He wasn't even 13 years old. And some folks say they feel safe at school, but not everybody. And then some folks say they may feel safe at church or some religious institution. But that's about it. There's usually maybe four places that black folk, so-called random black folks, feel safe. And the place, when I ask them this question that they never name, is right there. They never name right where they are, with me, and whoever else is there who may look like them. So when you're living in, so one of the things racism has produced for those of us who are politically designated as black is a hypervigilance. And so that hypervigilance is, Mama Fire, we talk here on True Love Movement Tuesdays that we're living essentially in the root chakra. Most of our experience is in the root chakra, and then we go up to the sacral. We fight, flight, and this is FCC. We won't say what it is, but we procreate, fight, flight, and procreate, and that's it. We don't ascend any higher than that, not because there's something wrong with us, but our experience, in order to respond to this level of persistent dehumanization that has lasted more than 400 years, this is the way we've responded to it. And it's become normative behavior for us. So when we see something, or we're looking at colorism, we're thinking, you know, you're getting better because you're lighter or what have you, but we don't look at how we're all getting something bad. We're getting dehumanized and messed over. All of us are. So that's what happens when you're oppressed for as long as we have been. We start looking at, well, what's the least amount of oppression I could get? How can I get a little bit closer to white to get some of these goodies? How can I get rewarded? And then how can you sit up here and tell me there's something wrong with me wanting to have that? And if I can get it, then I can say, well, I'm better than you because you can't get it. I get a chance to pretend and mimic the dominant culture, which, again, we see that playing out, particularly in a place like America, who in 2050, they say there won't be any more of these so-called white people here in America. So where does this ideology go, and how does colorism? Because Mama Fias predicted many years ago, when we were first encountering information, that if we're not careful, there'll be an end to white supremacy and an advent of light skin supremacy here in America.
That's right. Yeah, I spoke to a young woman just today. Let me go around. I spoke to a young woman today. I had just talked to her about the colorism events that are happening. Tomorrow is the youth event from 11 to 1, and then on Saturday there is the adult event that youth are invited to, but it's centered around men and women right here in the community, Healing Colorism, Saturday at 1 o'clock at 3101 Irado Street, Healing Colorism. And so I was inviting her because we were talking about our names. My name's Ayana, her name was another African name, and she said, I've decided that I'm going to name my child a name that is unisex and is
get a job.
Yeah, to get a job. So something like Tracy or something easy, you know.
Shout out to Tracy Elizabeth.
Yes, and you know, we don't name ourselves or whatever. Some of us do, you know, right on when we get to that point. But I talked to her about how that is even also internalized racial oppression. When you say, I'm going to name my child something so she can have access. What's the difference between saying, I'm going to have my child with a light-skinned person or a white person so they can have access? You know, and she was like, one of them things that just kind of hit. Like saying, you know, when do we just be okay? Just be who we are. And I think, you know, we're True Love Movement is one of those goals is self-awareness and self-love, so that we can know who we are and walk through spaces in that way without even, you know, wondering who's going to like me, who's going to give me access, who's going to, you know, and being afraid of those things. So I think it's deeper, so much deeper than any of us know. You know, like I have to deal with myself sometimes too. And shout out to my daddy. You know, my daddy was a very, very light-skinned brother and rising power king because he's a mighty, mighty ancestor, frontline ancestor. But he loved brown-skinned women. So shout out to him for giving me an understanding of that. Because just imagine, as a light-skinned, you know, I get my skin color from my daddy. But if I never saw it, if I never saw what it looked like to have a beautiful brown-skinned mother, and then a beautiful brown-skinned other mother, or stepmother, you know, to know that we're not different, that we are the same, that even, you know, even though our shades are different, our struggle is the same. You know, we are women, we are beautiful, we think and we hurt and you know, we are the same people, you know. So I shout out to that experience, but there are some people who do not have those experiences, and there's some people whose parents tell them, like, you know, like you said, your mom said about Layla and her and sitting in the sun, whose parents tell them, no, you don't bring no dark-skinned woman up in here.
Don't bring no nappy-head girl to my house.
That's right, you know. And so this is something that you have to have the courage to break the chains of. You have the courage to break the cycle. And so, again, I want to thank Shera, Brian, and Vonna for being here and having the courage to do that work.
Yeah, also, let me thank Amani Black Pearl. She's going to be in the building.
That's my sister.
Yeah, and all of the facilitators that's going to come through. I'm really, really thankful to all of you all. I'm thankful to the people that's going to come with the purpose of participating.
Biggie?
Oh yeah, thank you to Big E. Also, we're gonna have Altina Sims in the building. She is a spoken word artist. I'm excited about that. Excited about Brian and Vonna and Brother Shaq and Mama Fire and us helping us. Y'all, we gotta continue to support one another. We got people. We got community leaders. We have community organizations who have made themselves available and who has made this their work, and we have got to support them and got to make sure that they're still able to continue to do that work and support that work.
Yeah, thank you. It's a real sacrifice of time, energy, and heart, but with the goal of our people rising from the ashes, rising from the root chakra, rising from, rising can be so many different ways, and eventually rising up. So, just want to give Vonna a chance to speak on anything she would like to. If you have any perspectives about the work that's getting ready to happen on Wednesday and Saturday, and the reason why you're passionate about doing this work.
I'm the most passionate because I feel like the most impact can and should be done from inside yourself first, and then it blooms from there. So having a 5-year-old daughter that is with me most of the time, I'm free right now. Baby Jesus in a suede blanket. But just having her see me and be around and seeing the things that she does that I can see came from me puts me on duty to do the work that I need to do to be a whole woman, mother, wife, daughter for her, and to be an example of a beautiful black woman. Sometimes I say black and she'll correct me and be like, "We brown, mama." And so just having those moments of understanding with her, like very micro things, her perception of it. So I'm excited for Wednesday and to continue having solution-based conversation, because I think in the black community sometimes we get caught up on combing through and like having our wailing moments, which are definitely necessary and a part of healing, but we also need to revolve that and evolve and make sure that we're getting to solutions and connecting the dots and trying to rise, like you mentioned. So I'm excited about Wednesday because Layla will be able to be there and to see the children engage in this type of a conversation. I think it's necessary.
That's right. My babies will be there too, because it's important when we have these type of things and we're facilitating these type of things to bring our families, our children, those we can access easily into the space of healing. They have a different, maybe they can share something, maybe they can learn something too.
They teach.
Yeah, that's So we have a caller. Thank you for calling True Love Movement Tuesdays. This is Mama Fire. Hi. Hey sister, hey princess.
How are you? I wanted to go back exactly because you called my name.
Yes.
My father did mean Tracy. Yeah, but the one thing I didn't know what race I was.
Oh wow.
Or what ethnicity that I was. So Tracy came from not knowing. I'm not wanting anyone to know so that I wouldn't be discriminated against. And then the last name didn't help. So even going when I was going to LSU, I didn't check a box because I didn't know how to check a box because on my birth certificate there was no ethnicity. So in having those deep-rooted conversations for solutions, we have to be more humble and transparent. And now, in the light of me finding myself and being restored, the thing that impressed upon me that I love so much of my queen mother, Queen Tiande, Kapitifola, which means Tiande means good news, Ugandana means the moon, but she said we have to start back from which we came, Ubuntu. And you do a lot of work around that, and I believe that if we teach our children where they came from, and because of what has been done, that we are able to be here, and then we have to allow them to want to pick up the torch and encouraging that spirit of oneness that you have also wonderfully collected, especially, and thank you to Shera and everyone on the panel that has spoke up. You've truly spoken to my heart. And we have to really heal each other internally to heal others ourselves and accept example, we have Black History activity books where it's not sugar-coated. It's, I'll bring a sample, like with Malcolm. Help Malcolm escape the fire of his house before he's burned up. Let them know all that our ancestors have done to fight for equality, and so that they can be where they are, and then respecting that, then coming together, never letting anyone be alone. That's when we're most vulnerable. I was never felt I was in the same being of everyone else. I always felt different, but beginning to love my differences and say that's okay, and telling them that's okay. The children at can't believe when I went to go speak to them, they really are hurting. The babies are hurting. These are children, babies. He said, why don't you love us? Why they hate us so much? That's what we have, every traumatization that's playing on the news and the media, and not having those conversations. So I'm so excited, for tomorrow, to where they can have a voice and actually get that out to where they can, they too can begin healing. Because we don't want to perpetuate the cycle of hurt versus, when they go low, we go high, and keeping it high, like my big sis taught me.
Keep it high, queen. Keep it high.
Yes.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for your work too, because you're also going to be a part of the healing colorism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I say it's my pleasure as I'm working now on that. So as I'm listening and it's being more and more inspiring, the things that we can do to impress upon them so they actually have a visual and not just, being in the presence, but visual, but also spiritual, mentally, and kinesthetic. They can actually be touched in every single way and walk away knowing that they are the solution.
Yes, they are. Thank you, Tracy. You're so amazing. We love you, queen. Truth ambassador, you are. And one of my sisters, Tamara Prosper, on Facebook, the Facebook Live thread, says one more thing. Just like white people need to recognize their privilege, light people need to recognize it too. We can be the ones who speak up for our sisters and brothers who are darker. We must acknowledge that sometimes things may be a little easier for us. We have to do this even when we're being told we're not black enough, because although it hurts us, if we're honest, we know that we sometimes benefit from our proximity to whiteness. Wow. Shera?
I was really interested to hear what Mama Faya has to say, but this is what I think that, have I ever gotten a job because I was lighter skinned? I don't know. I can't say that wasn't the case. I can't say that it was. No one has ever told me that the reason why you're in the room is because you're light skinned. I will say that when I've had brothers tell me, oh, I don't date nothing but light skinned sisters, to me that's not a privilege. To me, what I hear is a pained or a hurt brother or a sad brother or a sick brother, expressing their pain to me, and I don't consider that a privilege. I don't consider that attractive. And sometimes a brother will say something like they don't date darker skinned women, and their mothers will be dark skinned, and so that shows me the extent of pain that you have gone through or that you are carrying. I can't say that I haven't experienced privilege, but what I will say is that being accepted by white people has not been something that I have cared a whole lot about. It's not been on my brain. It's not even, it's just not what I care about. And so I don't know. What you got?
I do think we have privilege. I do. I do, because I know that if I was up against a brown skinned woman, we had the same complete resume. Like, we've had all the same experiences or whatever, they would definitely choose me. Because I'm safer, I'm seen as maybe smarter, or even before you even get to know me, prettier.
You're not going to be
or
angry.
Funnier. I'm not going to be angry, right? I'm not going to have that resting, face or whatever. And that's not because of me. I didn't build these systems that says if you're lighter, you're better, or if you're lighter, you're prettier, or these type of things. But I do I purposely shine a light on my brown skinned sisters all the time. Like when we are doing anything, I will invite Amani Black Pearl, because she's so amazing and she's so beautiful and brown skin and so smart and so funny and so vibrant. I always reach out to her. I reach out to Nicole's sister midwife, because she's so smart and so beautiful and so funny, and so that if I'm there, I'm gonna push myself. I'm gonna invite my sisters to come. Now, if they can't make it, it's all good. But I do that on purpose, you know. And I don't go around walking in my privilege. I don't go around saying, well, I'm light skinned girl, you know, do I get a pass or anything like that? But I do recognize that these things were built, you know. And in my way, what I do is make sure to take my sisters with me. All of my sisters, you know. And so it's not about me, you know, it's not about me feeling bad, I got privilege, or light skin tears, you know. I can say white tears, light skin tears. It's about me using what I got, you know, in as far as all the quote unquote rules that they've created. Y'all, there is no such thing. There really is no such thing as a difference between me and Vonna's skin color. You know, we're black women. We have, you know, but they've created these things.
Exactly.
And so sometimes we have to pull away and divest from many systems. And sometimes if we're moving through systems, we use what we got, you know. So I you know, I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I think Tamara is right in many ways. Yeah. What do you think, Vonna?
I think that's a good point. I think I'm going to share something maybe too personal, but Shera and I actually just went to Take 'em Down NOLA, had a talk at a mosque, and we met a sister who was light skinned. And to my knowledge, she and I had met her at the same time, first time meeting her, and we saw her at another event later on, and she embraced Shera and hugged Shera and talked to her, and I was standing right next to her, and she didn't even acknowledge me. Now, I didn't take it like I didn't go in my feelings, but it's just like,
You saw it.
acknowledging that.
Yes.
And whatever it means about me, what it says about me, that I saw it, like, because that's the thing that I do a lot, like, stuff like that'll happen, and then I'll go inside and be like, am I overthinking this? Did that really happen? So just giving ourselves the right to acknowledge those things, and like you said, once you've acknowledged it, what solution can I now wrap around this to make it better for the diaspora? So.
And you know, me and Shera, we talked about that experience that happened. And what I, you know, in some coaching, I said that next time she could mention it. Shera could. Because her privilege could say, you know, Vonna is my sister, she's right here. She may also like a hug. Or, you know, and we're not sure what that was. We're not sure. But using your privilege to say, you know, this is my sister, she's right here, she's listening, maybe she'd like to be a part of our conversation, maybe she, you know, like bringing it together.
Yeah, I was extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was extremely uncomfortable. I did not know, but you know, moving forward,
It was unlearning.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and it takes bravery, y'all, to stare in the face of something that we inherited through white supremacy, through slavery, through racism, through patriarchy. These things we've inherited, you know, that we take with us, that is not really ours. This is not ours. And so staring into the face of that and actually doing something is tough sometimes, because we don't want somebody to say, what? You know, because cognitive dissonance kicks in, and we say, well, sis, you know, I noticed, you know, you start talking about light skin, dark skin, people get uncomfortable and be like, oh, you're tripping. And they'll make you feel like you're tripping, even though you know exactly what it is. You know what it is. What you say, Brother Shane? Come on, get on this. Because we are at 5:53,
Right.
and we want to thank, you know, this was a really good show.
Definitely.
This is a really good show. We're going to make sure to put it on YouTube.
Right.
Because we want to share you with people who listen to our show. We want to share, we want to connect you with them so that we continue to build these nets that work.
That's right. Yeah, that's old People's Institute anti-racist principle, creating a net that works. So shout out to Ron Chisholm and Barbara Major too, who coined and conceptualized the whole concept of internalized racial oppression, and it having two forms: internalized racial inferiority, which is impacted by black folks, or it impacts black folks exclusively, and internalized racial superiority, which impacts white folks exclusively, and that the one can't happen without the other. And in Barbara Major's conceptualization, colorism is one of about 15 manifestations of internalized racial inferiority. So it's understood as again, this is a pathology here that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And just to add to, as we're closing, you just said something about YouTube. This will be on the YouTube channel, as well as many other videos that are on the YouTube channel. I know Brian over there, he's a Truth Ambassador. He subscribes to the YouTube channel, and there are many other folks, and we appreciate that. And we ask that you watch those videos and share those with people you respect, and comment on the videos. And Brian and many others use them as teaching tools, which is the way we conceptualize, we envision that Mama Fire.
That's right.
So we got maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or so years of material that's there, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But I heard Vonna sharing that personal story,
Yeah.
and there was something. It made me think about something that a brother told me, because I know again black men are impacted as well.
Yes.
A brother who I worked with once, he was a fireman, and he's a lighter skinned brother, and he was saying how they were on a site, they were fighting a fire, and another squad showed up, and the brother who approached him was he happened to be a darker skinned brother, but the brother approached him and was asking him all kinds of questions about the site. And so he says, well, I'm not really sure, man, you have to talk with the captain. He says, well, I thought you were the captain. He said, no, that's the captain over there, which was a darker skinned brother. He just presumed that this brother was in charge. And we talked a lot about how many of the lighter skinned brothers have that experience where people presume that they're smarter, that they're the ones that are in charge, because we have particularly in our city, there is a long, lengthy history of the lighter skinned black men who have been in charge and have been authority figures, whether we're talking about any type of government agency, or politics, or law enforcement, or what have you. So that's always been the case since the plantation. And there was I'm going to try to find it and put it in the comments, but there was a paper written by a sister many years ago that spoke, Brian, directly about the deliberate creation of the quote-unquote Creole class from the city council of New Orleans to strategically dismantle any kind of potential for unity once they had to integrate. That it was specifically done because, again, it would serve the purpose, because the folk who, just like when we talk about anything else, it's only, people who are quote-unquote poor people who are talking about finance problems and the mismanagement of funds and the imbalance of capitalism. Wealthy people don't talk about that because it's not an issue for them. So in the same vein, the lighter skinned folk who are rewarded and receive benefits because of colorism aren't going to typically be the ones on the front line saying this is wrong, this shouldn't happen, we need to change this. And that ain't no disrespect to them. That is the co-opting nature of white supremacy. See, white supremacy makes you complicit in your own oppression if you're not careful, because you don't know what it is. So we're excited about tomorrow.
Yes.
Right, Mama Fire?
Tomorrow's for the youth.
Wednesday, Shera, if you would, give us the rundown and where the people can find the flyer and the information about the event itself, and those kinds of things.
Okay, in order to see the flyer, you can go to True Love Movement's Facebook page, their Instagram page. You can go on Facebook and you can type in Healing Colorism. The event will come up. We got tomorrow for ages 7 to 17. That will be at 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Parents are welcome to stay if they would like. If they don't want to just drop their babies off, they may stay with them. And then we have on Saturday from 1 to 3 o'clock. And that will be at, again, 3101 in Rattle Street. That's Us Helping Us, aka Crescent City Boxing Gym.
And would you recommend that on Saturday, if possible, the parents can bring some of the children maybe back? Because I think the way the children can watch us engage about this can really help influence how they see it.
Definitely.
And oftentimes we don't think about that. We want to keep it separate. But I think them seeing us and how we do it could be helpful. We want to thank you, Vonna, for coming through.
Yeah. Would you like to share anything about like how people can get in touch with you or anything like that?
No.
Okay, no, that's totally fine. We'll see you as a facilitator
Right.
of Healing Colorism. What about you, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. because you're doing some things. Tell us about what you're doing as far as the meditation and the journaling group.
You can come on over here, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys for having me, though.
yeah, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, what's happening, Brian? Truth
Yeah,
That's it.
family. So, couple of things that I have coming up. I have the High and Centered Saturdays.
Greetings and computations.
It's Saturdays where we go ahead by the lake and we meditate together for about an hour, and then we have the journaling circle on Sundays where we journal for an hour. And these are two very great reflective practices. I found that in my healing journey, inspired by these great people here, that this allows me to see myself and allows me to actually be able to make better decisions and understand myself. And I think everyone needs to, can really benefit from these practices. So if you guys are interested, just go ahead, and I know Brother Shaq has shared the meditation group on True Love Movement's page, so check that out. Or you can just go ahead and find me on Facebook, Brian Ford Jr., and message me anytime.
Right on. Thank you, dear
y'all.
brother.
This was a good show. Yeah, we're gonna just sign off, Brother Shaq and Mama Fire.
Right on for True Love Movement Tuesday. Share this show with folks you respect, family. Wholeness. All right.
Yay. That was a good show, y'all. Thank you. It was like non-stop, right? I didn't even take a break, take a breather. Yeah.
Colorism is a big topic.
Man,
Yes, it is.
this will take. This is gonna be way more than
Mm-hmm.
this is like years of work. It has to happen.
I was telling Sheila, I was like, people are gonna ask, like, can you come do this at my church? Can you come do this? That's what happens when you start this type of work. So,
Wasn't anticipating it. But I wanted to ask you, in the things that you've had to heal from, and the things that you've gone through, do you find that on the other side of that, that's not anything that you struggle with at all anymore?
so it's colorism?
Whatever. It don't have to be colorism. Just what anything that you've gone through the healing or going through the healing process with.
Yeah. I mean, the healing process doesn't end. The truth of the matter is I'm still in America. I'm still on the, in this box, even though I've divested in many ways. I struggle and see things that I need to change every single day. I do. And it's because I've gotten to the point where I've moved through the hard, the hard breakthrough of, damn, I'm messed up. You know what I'm saying? Damn, I was messed up by the system. I was messed up by my parents. I was messed up by the schools. I was messed up. So I already broke through that, which is a freedom and a liberation of itself, to help me be able to see all the things that, daily I'm like, damn, did I just say that? I can't believe I said that. And it's never like, wild, crazy shit, but it's still rooted in, some of the same kind of teachings that I was taught. So I'm in a place of liberation from the things, I've healed from many things, but I still...
Decolonizing that mind.
Decolonizing the mind is difficult, but I've gotten to the place where I can see it, that I'm not ashamed of it, that I'm not like, damn, I'm really broken. I'm like, this is how we got to do it. This is how we got to keep barreling through and pushing through. So I still deal with it in a lot of ways, But I do have a sense of freedom that I can really look at it. I'm not scared to say, I got to work on that. Or, sometimes when I'm sitting with some sisters and I tell them they have low self-esteem, they just like, what? I mean, it hurt. They just like, you know what I'm saying? Sis, we all do. Like, we all grew up here, and we all grew up in this environment that told us we ain't good enough. That we're not good enough. That impacts your self-esteem, regardless of if you have a mama that's cheering you on, or if you, and so we are all trying to get ourselves in an understanding of our true selves, who we really are, despite all that has been taught to us. We've been indoctrinated in all these different things. And so I don't have a problem with looking at myself and being like, okay, that's foul. or that's not becoming of who you are. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have that, no, that's not, no. I don't have that dissonance and stuff anymore. I'm really clear that I'm shedding things every day, constantly shedding. It's okay. So I don't know if that answered your question. I can go on and on about that.
I remember the first time he told me, he didn't tell me, but he asked me, do you think you really love yourself? And I was like, of course.
Right? That's everybody's answer.
Like, I love myself. And then he starts asking other questions. Well, if you love yourself, when you do everything that you need to do for yourself, without it being such a struggle, then I started to think about that. Like, why couldn't I do this? Why couldn't I do this? Why do I reflect these things upon myself that I know are good for me? And so that was December.
Okay.
And it's like, we're in like July, going into August now. And I'm just starting to feel like I love myself. And it comes back to what Mama Fire is saying. We've been taught to not love ourselves our whole entire life. We're 30 years of being taught that you ain't nothing but a number in this whole system, and you black, and you a woman on top of it. So you property too. Yes, it's rough. But like we was talking about when you showed me shadow work, and I was telling you it's light work. Once we're in the light, and the light is not as blinding, and we can actually see our traumas, then we can move past or do something about them. Don't mean it disappears, but it's a wound that you let breathe, and then you can start to heal it. Doesn't mean the wound disappears, but it gets better.
Yeah, I think that the piece about healing being a process is deep, because especially like going back to indigenous and like shamans, they had, like, if you had a thing, whatever your illness was, you would go in this tent, or they would have days of processes and rituals that they would do, herbs to, like it was a thing to heal. You didn't
Process,
just be
it was an
like,
event.
Right, go to the doctor, go fill this prescription, take them pills. It was a fully intentional process of healing, and I think that's something that we are very far away from, unfortunately. And so I was kind of like thrust into realizing if I love myself or not. When I had Bell's palsy one day, my face literally just like drooped to the side, and I was like, what's going on? So just like, and I didn't go to no counselor, and I didn't have a doctor, and I actually had a mom who told me that God did, so it was like all kinds of stuff with this real trauma that I had that forced me into acknowledging if I love myself or not, am I beautiful or not, am I value or not. And so that's why now at 30 I can, not that I've become, but at least I can be in a place, especially as a mother, to see the things and nurse my little wounds and try not to inflict those same wounds on my daughter. So it's like, right? every day.
Every day. And so True Love Movement is always talking about the evaluation that has to happen with yourself, like evaluating where you are. I think that's the hardest part, because you gotta dig beyond everything you've been through to see how did this impact me. And so digging in that evaluation part, I'm over it. I know what I'm working with. Like, I know all I'm working with, and the universe will send me something to say, that's not over. You're not over with that. Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay. We're in the belly of the beast, yo. We're in the belly of the beast. How do you heal in the belly of the beast? Constantly. That's how you heal. Consistently and constantly in the belly of the beast. It needs to be on the forefront of your mind. It needs to be right here, right at the tip of your tongue, right here, just constantly looking on being well in the belly of the beast. So. Bonus.
Shaq, you want to add to that?
Yeah, Brother Shaq, you know he always got something.
Well, I think you all have said all that needs to be said. I mean, I hope that my hope is that the work and the idea and the creativity of healing this stays in the forefront of the work, because that's what's different. We're talking about healing it as opposed to just talking about it, because talking about it is really, really important. I mean, because people have so much they got to get out. That's how come when we have these kind of conversations, people are typing paragraphs like because they got real lived experience. This isn't a theoretical conversation. The question then becomes, how do we make that productive, and that it is, and acknowledging it is a process. It takes a significant amount of time, and it takes as long as it takes too. That's the other thing. We're talking about the momentum of 400 years of this, and I mean, we're just. My estimation is that we are in a phase of our re-evolution of being able to just see what has happened to us. We're not really collectively in a place to do yet. We're still developing a collective analysis. We want the immediacy to happen because we can see, man, this is really, really bad and this needs to change. But to remember, our work is philosophical. This is about your sanity. So it's not going to just change automatically. And my thought is, if we do this right and continue to work this way, that our grandchildren won't have to be having the same conversation. But that's the legacy work that we're doing. So right now we're establishing what they're going to say about us. And we know the ways that some of our contemporaries talk about our elders and some of our ancestors about, man, they wasn't doing nothing, they dropped the ball, they sold us out. They got all kinds of ideas and opinions about what those who came before us did. They say things like, I wouldn't have been on that plantation. I mean, all those kinds of things that they say because they don't know the gravity of what was happening in that moment. They are Monday morning quarterbacking it. And it's important that we remember that time is going to come for us too. There are going to be folks who are going to be evaluating through the lens of their day. So what did we do or did not do? And I think the best that we could do for our legacy and our descendants, because I'm big on the descendants, is make sure that they were clear that we weren't cowards in this time. That's the thing that we can do. And move it along just a little bit more so that they can get to the point of developing the collective analysis that does resolve this kind of foolishness. And then our folks can be reacquainted with their humanity so they can find out who we really are, who we were before we came in contact with these folk. Because we don't even know who that is yet. We still don't know. So we're looking to get there, Mama.
Yes, we are.
We're looking to get there. And I'm excited about tomorrow. It is 1301 or 1801?
3101.
It's neither. It's 3101 Gerardo Street. Our good brother Al over there from Southern Scrap, with us helping us, Crescent City Boxing Gym. Come out, family. Bring your young people out. And what I've learned in Mama Fire has been so influential, and she's my teacher. But one of the things that I've learned is that if we can't talk about the truth in front of the young people, we probably ain't got no business talking about that stuff. And that they should see us and they should be a part of that conversation, because part of the reason why many of us in my generation are the way that we are is because our parents weren't honest with us. They didn't have that kind of courage to be honest with us. And we ain't talking about tough love. We talking about being gentle with black folks. Something completely different. And so we can't do that if we're not liberated. And we can't expect that from them to automatically do that. They have to be guided through that process. So I'm excited that we're starting with the young people, and then we're going to move to the adults. And thank you, Shera, for your tenacity and making this an event, a thing. Thank you, Vonna, for coming through. Thank you, Brian. Bella, thank you for coming through.
Thank you, Bella. You're so patient.
Speaking of the next generation, right?
Yeah,
Speaking of the
she
senior
been listening the
descendants,
whole time.
right? And thank you, Mama Five, for having the wisdom and the courage to, and being gifted true love movement and giving that to all of us.
Yeah,
Say
the
that
beautiful
again.
things, the beautiful
Yes.
things.
Right on.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
All right.
wholeness.
Wholeness.